Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode here on The Remedy. This is PD, Pastor D, and I want to take a moment to say thank you to each and every one of you for inviting us into your home today. We have a great show. Today, we're going to be dealing with whether or not we want to abolish the police system or whether or not we want to reduce the funding that is receiving. As thousands of people across the country have gathered to demand justice for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and other Black people that are killed by the police, there is another cry. There is another cry that has gained momentum, and that cry is that the demand for us to defund the police. It's an idea that has been that's been popular among activists and critics of the criminal justice system for decades. Just yesterday, I read this article from the New York Times entitled, "Yes, We Mean Literally Abolish the Police." And as a society, we have been so indoctrinated by the idea that we solve problems by policing or by caging people, just throw them in jail, and if we can put as many people as possible in prisons, that will be the solution to the violence that exists. But what does that mean? Is it true? Does that mean that defunding, when we talk about defunding the police, what are we talking about? Is it even something that is possible to do here in America? Will crime increase without police? A lot of people are afraid. So what about a total police reform? Is that something that we should consider? So I want to take a moment to welcome each and every one of you to our show today. Welcome to the members of our panels. Louis, it's nice to see you today, brother. How are you?
It's good to be seen. I'm well, thanks. How are you? I'm happy to be here. Glad to fill in for one of the regulars.
Awesome. And Woody, love the hair, love the t-shirt.
Thank you.
All right. So, guys, help me out here. Before we even talk about whether or not we want to defund the police system or come up with something completely different, I was thinking about this topic, and I wanted to know, when we think about crime, in your opinion, what are some of the main reasons why we even have crimes in our society? What are some of the things that cause people to want to steal, to want to kill, to want to grab something that don't belong to them? What force people to have that kind of lifestyle? You can go ahead, Louis.
Oh man, I was hoping to be the last guy as I'm the new guy. You know what I mean? But okay, since you put me in the spotlight. I mean, listen, it would be easy to make the answer to that question about disenfranchisement, but the fact of the matter is, at its core, we have the ability to make choices, and crime at its core is a choice. Now, there are experiences and factors that affect those choices, but ultimately, crime, just like goodness, is a choice.
Okay. Woody, do you agree or disagree with that bold statement by Louis?
Bold.
I mean, I think you're right. We all have free will, but there are certain communities, regardless of because of the socioeconomic conditions that they are in, tend to more crime, right? Ask themselves, what is the reason? Is it because they are over policed, and we're seeing that the crime in certain areas are more represented? um, even though crimes are committed by all we if you look at the statistics, white people and black people, you know, consume or not consume, do weed, smoke weed at the same amount. In some areas, sometimes they say it's even higher for white people, but people who are penalized are in a certain area because of over policing in that area, right? And so I know that like it's a interesting topic. Like there is free will, but you know, people a lot of times out of desperation or frustration uh, do things. It's not to justify what they have done, but it's also to understand why some people do the things that they do.
Yeah. So in my opinion, I don't know. I feel that it's a combination of a lot of things. I mean, both of you, I agree with you, Louis, in some ways. Um, but I feel when you live in a society that is socially ill, okay, with lack of education and poverty and unemployment and lack of opportunities, to make something out of yourself. And when you grow up in a community, and no matter what you do, I mean, you try your very best to do the right thing, but at the end of the day, it's almost like even the right thing is not even enough. We have people for one reason or another, they committed a crime. It's a petty crime, right? I want to feed my family. I'm at the end of the world or whatever, and I steal something. Now it's a small offense, but nevertheless it's an offense, and you get arrested, you get put away in jail. But when you come back, now there's a stigma associated with you, with your name, because you've been in jail. That now going back to find a job or try to be more productive in the society that you find yourself living in, it's a lot harder for you now because you have a criminal record. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's a lot harder. So having said that, when we take all of those things and we compile them together, okay, is the solution, I guess I'm asking the question, the solution to reducing crime, um, is it putting people away in jail? Is that the best way? Is that the way of the society? Is that the way we ought to go? Or is it trying to improve the communities where people live and they lack resources, lack opportunities, um, so that they can thrive? What do we do before we even look at whether or not to defund the police or not? Let's look at what caused people to do those things, right? And then how can we fix the crime problem?
I guess I'm first again.
Yeah.
You cannot fix the crime problem.
Unless,
No, you cannot fix the crime problem.
what's the root of that problem, though? What's the root of the issue?
Well, because I can say many of us can speculate, but I don't think any of us actually know the answer to that question. So I'm going to answer that question with two divergent frames of thought. First, I'll take the frame of thought from the ideology of the God-fearing individual, be they of the Judeo-Christian Islamic mode or of any religious belief. We were born perfect. The disease of sin entered our life.
Mhm.
Now we have this disease, and there is no cure except for God. The other explanation outside of the metaphysical would be the scientific. We become who we are through parental and legacy genetics and our experiences in life. And the two of those combined make us who we are. And whether you have a propensity for getting breast cancer or a propensity for being a criminal, one can say that a legacy of that exists within your bloodline or within your experience based on your geographical location. Either way, historically speaking, you mentioned something about crime and the access to resources and things like that. But if you leave the United States, the wealthiest country in the world per capita, you'll find that countries labeled as third world countries have far and away fewer crimes
Mm-hmm.
on all levels.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't a financial thing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's obvious. And another thing is, it's also not a color thing. If you look at the FBI statistics, 52% of the population are white people in the United States, and 71% of the crimes are committed by white people. So this isn't a color thing either. What the issue is when you look at the statistics and when you look at how the statistics are manipulated, because it is a fact that uh, by population, blacks and people of African descent commit significantly more murders by percentage than any other ethnic group. But and that you can find in numerous newspaper articles. It is difficult for anyone to find without doing some research that 70% of all crimes are committed by white individuals. It was also difficult to find without doing significant research that the overwhelming majority of rape and physical assaults are committed by white people. And I'm not making this a black-white issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm just stating the facts as opposed to what you can easily find in media reports.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that is left out of those statistics is if you go to the FBI site that renders these statistics, you'll find that you will find blacks, whites, Asians, but you won't find a line item for Hispanics because what they have done is they have they give you the impression that 12.4% of the population are black people, but they leave out the fact that blacks and Hispanics combined make up 32% of the population, and they take Hispanic crimes and list them with black
The
crimes.
blacks. Yep. Yep.
So there is an
Yep.
intention. And when we talk about reform, what we need to talk about is not those being reformed. We need to talk about the reformers because welfare reform has created more disenfranchisement of poor people. Educational reform has created less educated people. Every political attempt to reform a thing has created a bigger problem in the system they're attempting to reform. So we need to talk more about the reformers than those needing to be reformed.
I agree. Um, Woody, what do you think?
Can you ask the question again? I'm
The,
sorry.
the question, we're trying to find out the root of the issue of crime.
Um, I mean, I just think that that question is not to say that it's. I don't know that there is like specifically a root to crime. Crime goes as far back as time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I don't know that there is a so-called root to crime. I do know that the people who there's a root to the representation of the people who are criminalized, and I think that that's a very different conversation. But I did want to also, Lewis said something about when you go to third world countries and um, the crime statistics of those countries. I will say this, that even in those third world countries, the most impoverished area of those same countries are where you find the higher crime rate. So economics does play a bit large factor. um, in 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 the so-called, not so-called, but in the type of, in a lot of the crime statistics. I think the other thing that we it's real, again, it's kind of hard to say, well, this is the root of crime and this is how we fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know that we can fix that type of thing, right? I
Mm-hmm.
know that we can help stop the pull the prison pipeline. I know that we can help stop how certain communities are criminalized. I know we can help uh, uh, young people realize that there are opportunities out there before they give up. So I know those things. I don't know end crime.
Okay. All right. So Eddie and Mark, you guys just came in. We are discussing whether or not there's a root to the issue of crime. This is from someone who's watching us online right now. This is from coming from Miriam. She mentioned that there are other factors that include one's biology and genetics. Humans are innately self-interested and will commit crimes if they perceive the benefits of the crime to be greater than the risk for themselves, social environment, and the people they associate with. And then she said, ultimately, the reason that people commit crime is likely a combination that many different theories and is highly dependent on the individual situation and characteristic of a particular crime. So, having said that, then, as we look at the police, okay, when you think about public safety, do you automatically see a police officer? Do you automatically see a police system? How would you define public safety?
Okay. So, hello everybody. How would I define public safety? I mean, so everybody here has their different upbringing, right? Different place that you grew up and stuff like that. And you have a lot of different things that affect you. From where I grew up, and I'm not saying like, I was gang banging with the rest or anything like that, but the environment that I grew up in, police was not, it's not necessarily who we think of or who we call when we think about public safety. Our own communities is, like in our Black community, we deal with stuff on our own because from the very beginning, I can probably say there was always a distrust of police. So it's hard to say like, well, how do you view police and public safety in the same sentence? We never put them in the same sentence. The same way where typically in the African American communities, when you have a white person come knock on the door, we automatically assuming that something's up because that's what they bring. Every time a white person comes into the community, Black people get got. So there's a big level of distrust for white people or police officers in certain communities. And so when you ask like, hey, how do you guys feel about public safety? Like we the public, we make sure we safe ourselves. Now, with that being said, the topic and the issues are as well, you guys can't police yourselves. You guys commit crimes against each other. I think we got to look at everything from an equal viewpoint. And you guys were already mentioning some things. Everybody does crimes against each other. So when people use that, well, Black on Black violence is a thing. Yeah, that's true. Have you also heard of the mob? A lot of the people that they were killing were their own, right? Like the Irish kill their own. White people kill white people. So like saying stuff like, well, it's because African Americans have higher crime rate. Like Rudy brought up a very high point. I thought, well, yeah, it looks like we have a higher crime rate because you have more cops in our neighborhood than you have the white ones. So when you have the white officer come back from the hood and you have the one other officer that was serving all of this white area, he's gonna be like, yeah, I didn't see that much crime today. But the African American communities, you're gonna see a lot more crime. So, and that I think also you're gonna see a lot more crime in the African American community because there's less opportunities for them to be able to get bare necessities, and so the mindset shifts. It's not. I don't think it's a question of like, hey, where does crimes come from, or how it is. We're all human. There's sin in the world. That's just gonna happen. Animals do something against people, against each other. Like we can't be like, well, why did the animal attack this one? It wasn't hungry. Like that's just part of life. But I think what we have to look at is if we address the things that are affecting the African American communities that were done systematically to hold them back and limit opportunities, and it's not just the opportunities that I'm talking about. It's also the mentality that has now been passed on to the children. I mean, you have 12-year-old kids that have no hopes, no aspirations, no dreams, no goals, and the only thing that they know is in order to eat, I gotta rob still because that's what I see in front of me. How on earth are you gonna reach that kid and say, well, let me just give him, he just needs more opportunity. Opportunity to do what? He doesn't know how to handle that. If I gave a homeless person opportunity to change his life, then this homeless person has been homeless for more of his life than he's done anything else. It's going to be very hard for the homeless person to say, oh, yeah, great, thank you. I had a checklist of things that I wanted to do as soon as somebody comes help me out. They've been in that life for so long, it's going to take more than just the opportunity. It's going to take helping them with the mindset and all these other things. So that's a long response, but honestly, I don't believe in public safety when it comes to the police. In fact, I know the topic today is defunding the police. I think you need to defund the police. I think you need to dismantle the police. I think over the course of the birth of policing, which is out in Boston, you guys can definitely look that up, and where policing is now, I think you just have to do away with it. You have to create something else and have new guidelines that group follows. You have to make it prestigious. Like in Finland, teaching is a prestigious occupation. You have to have a master's degree to become a teacher. They pay very well. Finland's also a country that in the last 10 years, they changed they're the number one school system in the entire world because of how they changed the outlook of what it is to be a teacher. That's what needs to be done here in the United States. We don't have respect for police. We don't have respect for what they do and how they do it because they're doing it wrong and they're protecting each other in order to continue doing it. And it's so much psychological and deeper things that's involved with that. So just do away with it. Have something else come in its place. Make it more harder to become, whatever that thing is, or police. I give this, and this is my last thing. It actually takes more hours to become a hairstylist than it does to become a police officer. It takes more hours to curl hair on your own as an occupation than it is to become a police officer, to go out into the world and police without having any real background checks on your beliefs and taking in all these negative things that you automatically view on a particular section of people that you're supposed to be providing safety to. So that's my 20 cents, and I won't say anything else for the rest of the show.
Melody and Wendy?
Yeah. So I think an important aspect that is overlooked, I think, is the fact that when it comes to like many of the arguments that we have about police and public safety, is that in real life situations, they are not usually the best people for that situation.
Yeah.
In instances of domestic abuse and homelessness, people who have reported it to the police will say that they will never do it again because their abuser 9 times out of 10 gets a slap on the wrist at most, and then they're more at risk because they call it the police. And I think that there are people who are better equipped for a lot of the situations. Like when it comes to sexual violence, girls who report it many cases they don't check rape kits, they don't process them right, the cases are mishandled, and then that person has to live with that fact for the rest of their life. So many times it's better to not report those things to police, to get mental help on your own, or to go to the hospital because you don't get the proper care there.
Um, I would like to chime in if I can. Um, I've heard a lot of different directions, a lot of different opinions on certain things, and we're talking about as regards to crime and public safety and things of that sort. First, let me start by saying my honest opinion that crime, there's no color in crime, right? The laws are the laws, and they're set up in particular ways. But the law is the law. Let's go biblical for a second. Let's just say, thou shalt not steal. It doesn't say, thou shalt not steal if you're black, thou shalt not steal if you're white, thou shalt not borrow and return to a user upon a certain date. It simply just says, thou shalt not steal. You see what I'm saying? What happens that changes the difference as to why you might see crime in African Americans more than you might see in white communities and things of that sort is kind of sort of what Melody was talking about as well, is how things are reported, right? And then you go into statistics and the number games and things of that sort, and you talk about the media as an example. Media in today's world is getting slandered left and right, but the media was the newspaper back in the day, and the newspaper didn't do justice towards African Americans in terms of crimes. Um, when a crime was occurred and it was done by a white person, they normally got a slap on the wrist. They normally were kept under the table. Um, in my opinion, they were given the suspended without pay type thing that happens to white police officers. That's what crime was back in the day. That's how they handle it. And if you notice, it's very similar to how they handle it now. When white people commit a crime, you don't really hear much about it. Now, and even if you do hear about it, the terminology that the media uses when it's a white crime versus when it's a black crime is totally different. So the media, in a sense, is more so to blame as to why black crime, quote unquote, black crime gets publicized more, stands out more. It's on the front page of news articles. It's blasted all over the place. Every channel you go to has something to say about it, but it's not the same for white crimes. Police always didn't have a bad name. I would say from my childhood growing up, I remember when they used to do certain things like come to the schools and talk to the kids. And they still do it now. My daughter told me police officers in her school come to every classroom and things of that sort, and that's such as well. But I think your community has to play a factor in public safety, right? What I think happened as to why the community has stopped, especially in the African American communities, because if I put my neck out to help this situation that's happening right in front of me, who's going to do the same when they come for me, so to speak? If I go report police brutality or something that I saw that happened in my neighborhood, now I got certain people on my case and no one's going to be there to assist. So what that tends to do to African Americans is that's where you get the things as no snitching and keep quiet, and there's no longer like neighborhood watch and things of that sort, because I'm only going to care about mine and not care about what's happening out there, because if it was me out there, no one would care for me. So I think public safety could be something that could be taken care of in communities, especially when community people know each other. But what also happens now is when other certain people move into your community, you no longer want to be a part of that community. So it's like you can't move out yet, or you stay to yourself until you can move out. So it's a lot of different factors. But to go back and say that crime, I don't believe that crime has a color. I just think when it's done by African Americans, it's more publicized.
So, so here's the next question, though. We're still dealing with the question on the table, whether or not we should defund the police. What is the price to pay for our safety? And when we say the word safe, does it mean a world in which the police keep black and other marginalized people in check, to threats and of arrest, incarceration, violence, and death? Is that what it's called? Is that what it means in order for society or for community to be safe? What are we willing to give up to be safe?
Can I start this time?
Absolutely.
Okay. So one of the things that we have to make sure that we are talking about is what defund the police means, right? And know that there are different mindsets, but most consistently, it is not to abolish the police. Abolishing the police and defunding the police are completely two things. And so most of the advocates of defunding the police are saying to reallocate the funds that some of the police departments have and using some of those funds for different services within the police department. Case in point, brought up that a lot of calls sometimes are mental health crisis or wellness checks, right? A lot of police officers have said that they themselves don't feel that they are equipped to do that. They don't like to do it. And so what people are saying is when you call 911, just like when you call 911 now and they say, what's your emergency? Is it a fire? Is it a medical? Excuse me. Is it a police emergency? What defund police are saying is let's add another feature that say it's a mental health crisis so that a social worker is on scene so because they know how to deal with someone who is in crisis. Or in schools, instead of adding more police officers in schools, that we now reallocate those funds and make sure that counselors are in school. When I was young, there were school counselors still, right? Now, in a lot of schools, there are police officers. And so when a child is going through something in school, then a police officer show up. They don't have the tools that they need to deal with that child in crisis. So I think it's really important that like we talk about what defund the police is and what it could be. And so it is police reform. It is reallocation of funds. It is making police officers accountable. It is also having community boards, peer review boards, and giving them more power. It is also in some places making sure that the state attorney general is an independent prosecutor or investigator. So it's a lot of things that we need to make sure that we are communicating clearly. I know some people don't want policing, right? Like Camden, New Jersey had abolished or had gotten rid of their police department. But there still is like people are still held accountable for crime. So what is it they did? What is it that can be replicated or changed? Because at the end of the day, if we're talking that crime is always going to exist, people need to be held accountable for that crime. And that's part of what police reform is, right? Like if I get shot on my corner, God forbid, and no matter who it is, a black person, a white person, a Latin person, because crime happened within proximity. So most likely the neighborhood I live in is going to affect who's going to be the perpetrator of that crime. But that person is held accountable for that crime, right? If a police officer does it, they are oftentimes, and prosecutors tell you this all the time, it is, they can indict anything including a hand sanitizer, except when it comes to police officers, because we are conditioned to give the police the benefit of the doubt. And because we are conditioned to give police the benefit of the doubt, we as juries tend not to convict police officers. What we want now is for people, the prosecutors and everyone else, to hold those police officers just accountable as anyone else that commits these crimes. So going back, I know I rambled a little bit, sorry about that, but I just want to make sure that what we're talking about is diverting funds, not completely defunding, not getting rid of all of them, but diverting funds and making sure that they're going to other services to help people. You know, LA mayor just said that they're going to take $150 million of their allocated budget to those services. I think New York just did the same thing. That's what we're talking about when I say defund the police. So I just want to make sure that get that out there.
Louis, what's
I
your
wanna-
take on defunding the police?
I want to do, I promise, 30 seconds or less on the public safety thing. I promise I can keep it to 30 seconds or less first. We, as Americans, live under a contract. That contract is the Constitution of the United States. In the contract, it says we have certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Anything that attempts, anything or anyone, including the government as a whole, that makes any attempt to encumber that pursuit is an adverse effect on public safety.
Mm-hmm.
And in disenfranchised communities, the police are more often than not seen as an encumbrance of that pursuit. And that's it. I think I kept that to less than 30 seconds.
All right, Markel.
That was actually pretty impressive. But I want you to understand, I'm gonna work hard to do that now. That was really good.
Take notes.
I'm just gonna go ahead and assume that Lewis is talking with some sort of stopwatch or timer next to him, because I don't know how he kept that right at 30 seconds for that one. So let's jump back into the Defund the Police, which is Rudy definitely jumped in and chimed in about the different steps and the different things that needs to be done when they talk about deforming the police, right? I also believe that those steps and those tactics are cool, right? Those are cool, right? Those are the best way. That's the best way term for me to say it's cool. That's the way we want to do it. When there's a problem, and one of the common denominator of the problem is a race that is abusing their privilege, my opinion, before you do any of those steps, you have to remove that denominator. Okay? So when we talk about defunding the police, we got private investigators, FBI agents, and stuff like that. All this technology that if you gave them my name, they can tell you everything that I've stated, posted, from birth all the way to my current age, right? So I believe that there's technology and knowledge enough out there that every police officer should go under investigation to find out if they belong to a certain group or culture. And I'll go ahead and say if they belong to the KKK, if they're white supremacists, if they are secret Black Panthers and all this other type of stuff. Because when they have the badge on, that's who they're portraying. But on the inside of that, they have hidden agendas. So the reason why I state this is because we talk about different laws and things of that sort. Let's quickly jump into the 13th Amendment, right? And that was created with the word in it that said, except if you commit a crime, right? So we've given the illusion that you guys are free. African Americans are free. You can do whatever you want to do, except if you commit a crime. So when I need to rebuild civilization and how things were going, because I just let all of my slaves go, I need to get workers to come back and finish the job, or to build the pyramid,
There
or
you
cast
go.
or
There you
whatever it
go.
is that I was trying to get you to do.
Mhm.
So if I can get them to commit crime, I can get them right back into the system. So now the 13th Amendment plays back into the favor of those same white supremacy, the same slave owners, the same overseers, aka officers, who were doing this before they changed the 13th or created the 13th Amendment, right? So then it's like there's other laws and stuff that can help create crime. Segregation, you're not allowed over here. If I catch you over here, you become a slave again. Jim Crow laws that came out, and you got to think, like, even when some of them abided by the Jim Crow laws, you have what happened in Tulsa when we created our own economy, our own way of life, and you guys came and still messed things up. You see
Mhm.
what I'm saying? So
Yep.
regardless of what you want to say is the procedures of this is how we need to do to defund the police, there's tons of police officers who first initial instinct isn't to be a cop. It's how can I get this African American, this colored person to commit a crime so I have authority to A, lock them up, or B, nowadays, just shoot them. There's a video that just came out, and I haven't done research on it yet because I just saw it this morning, of two officers fighting one African American kid in Atlanta. This is Atlanta, where we have a black mayor, we have a black police chief, and things of that sort. So you would assume that the police department operates a little bit differently. And because they could not take down this one African American, they tased him and everything like that. And he started to run. Their next initial thing was, I now can shoot him, and if I kill him, I kill him. So then I start to wonder the thought process, because there's rubber bullets out there. You should go through enough training that one of you should be able to take down a suspect or take down a person, that
Mhm.
two police officers shouldn't get beat up by one person. And the reason why probably y'all getting beat up by one person is because, like Eddie stated before, y'all not going through enough training in order to learn and operate certain ways. They're giving anybody with a badge now, and they're not doing even enough as far as background criminal check, background history, who you affiliated with, and things of that sort. I think you need to start by removing any of those officers that's affiliated with any of those groups. Point blank, period. And when I say remove them, maybe you cut them a $5,000 check, thank you for your service, and be gone. Because you can't have people like that in law enforcement. Like, I'm really being serious. That's like let's talk basketball. I'm a basketball person, right? Let's talk basketball. I have it in my system where only the white people shoot the ball. And if a black person shoots the ball, I'm trading you to another team, or I'm putting you on the bench, because I don't want you to ever be recognized for anything else but passing this white guy the ball and allowing him to shoot the ball. That's the type of game that we're playing right now.
I think Chris Rock, if my memory serves me right, Chris Rock made a comment and he says there are certain positions that you are in, that you can't be 90% good, you can't be 80% good, you can't have a pilot who's going to be 80% good but 20%
Right.
bad. So
Right.
depending on how he feels today when he shows up to work, he might fly the plane into a building. You know what I mean? You want a
Absolutely,
pilot to be
absolutely.
100% correct all the time. And the expectation, I guess the point he was trying to make is that we should expect the same thing, the same way we expect it from our doctors. We should expect the same thing, the same kind of treatment from the police officers. We're gonna go
Hey,
to
And here's the
yeah,
thing. Here's the
hey,
thing, real
hey,
quick.
real quick.
hold
Real
hold
quick
on one
before you jump
second.
out.
Hold on
Okay.
one
Hold on, bro.
second.
Hold on, bro.
Yeah,
The girls wanted to talk, so
correct.
I'm gonna let them talk because I know they've been have a
Yes,
lot to
yes.
say. I just want to add this one point. Um, and I think the girls are about to hit this, so I'm gonna let them hit it. But it's everything that has to change. It's not just the reform on one side. Understand the police law states that a policeman has the right to use his gun or kill someone as long as they feel threatened. That the way the law is written is left up for so much interpretation. Because you can see a 6'2" black man and say, "I feel threatened."
There you
You
go.
can see a black woman, and she's being loud because you're abusing her or you're touching her improperly, and she asks for a female to search her, and you say, "I feel threatened." It's the laws that need to change. It's not just the defunding side, but girls.
I understand what you're saying.
Hold on. Wait. I yield my time to the girls.
All right. Thank you.
I think, well, that was a good point. What I wanted to touch on was kind of what Uncle Marco was saying with we have to start with getting like those who are literally affiliated with like racist organizations out of the police force, out of prisons and things like that. I think that is a great start, but at the end of the day, like we saw it in the Stanford prison experiment, whenever there's a perceived imbalance of power, people are going to abuse that. It's the reason why there's war crimes all over the place. Like in Afghanistan, when the prison guards were literally torturing people, despite the fact that they knew that they could be punished for it. Whenever there is a huge imbalance of power, they're going to start abusing those who are underneath their care. So I think it's more than just the bad apples. It's the institution. We have to place less protections on the police so that they can be held accountable more often.
Lois, you're shaking your
I
head.
agree.
I am.
I agree with what you're saying. Sorry. One point, real quick, Lewis, because Eddie said something and then he tried to jump off. Real quick, Lewis, hold on. I agree with what you're saying, but just like you just stated, the law says that if they feel threatened, right? When you say officer sees an African American and he's 6'3" and he quote unquote feels threatened, why does he quote unquote feel threatened? Because from young age and the people that he's been affiliated with and how media has portrayed us, they portray the African Americans as animals in cages and things of that sort. He grew up with that type of lifestyle. So of course, as soon as he sees an African American, the guy could be President Barack Obama style, right? But the moment he see cornrows, he automatically assumes, or those got dreads. The moment he see dreads, he automatically assumes his prejudgment on that person. So if I see Lewis coming to me and I see dreads and everyone else that I've been connected with dreads in my past that I've been taught has automatically says negative things about them, I'm gonna quote unquote feel threatened now. So that finding the history of where these officers come from and who they're affiliated with is a major factor.
But I don't think just getting rid of these officers is ever going to be enough, because at a certain point, anybody can turn like that. It could be a black guy that sees a Hispanic walking down the street and be like, well, he looks like a gangbanger, so now I have the opportunity to kill him and keep the streets safe or something. I think what we really need is to get rid of these laws and put in more laws that protect us, not protect the police, protect the people. Because we're the foundation. We're the ones that actually need the protection. Not everybody has a gun that they can just use to defend themselves against a police officer abusing their power. We need to put in actual laws and more systems. That way we don't need police officers that are just trying to handle some kid walking down the street that looks like a suspect. And even
change in society is dependent on mindset and its people, not its laws. And I don't know if it was Eddie or Markel. I think it was Eddie. You guys, please correct me if I'm wrong. Eddie said in one of his earlier comments that if a white person knocked on his door, he would feel like something was wrong. Why is this white person knocking on my door? I'm going to assume, because I know if I am under the impression that the societal sentiment is if a black person knocks on a door in a white neighborhood, that there is this anticipation of what that reaction would be like. The black community would call the reaction of the white community having their door knocked on racist, but we don't seem to be willing to admit our response to racism has been racism. And Martin Luther King said, and I happen to agree with, hate is not the way to dissolve hate. So we have to admit that our responses to the things that have been happening to us haven't changed. Having said all of that, I'm not ignorant to the systemic theory of getting rid of black people in this country, or at least dehumanizing them to the point of them being things. I'm not ignorant to that. What I'm trying to, the point I would like to make overall in this show is, in a chess move, actually, let's use sports. I'm going to use both. In a chess move, the way that you win at chess is a great uh, opportunity because chess is a war. You're basically using pieces to fight a war. And I think that what we're doing is we're fighting a war. We're fighting a war against principalities, against, I don't want to completely quote the Bible, but the ideology is accurate. Who we're fighting the war against is not a face. It is not this person standing up saying, I declare war on you. We have to make moves that are counterintuitive to what the process has already been. We don't need to publicize and proclamize. We keep making these everybody knows. I got to be honest, to the people who don't see the problem, I have no interest in trying to change their mind. I think there's a problem and I want to solve it. In basketball and football, if you want someone to get an open shot, you set picks to get a man open. You try to create a diversion so that you can score. In football, you have the counter tray where the opposing side tackle or guard pulls to create an extra blocker on the side that you want to go to. And what we need to do if we see that there's a problem, we need to create diversions for our success. Defunding the police does not address the principality that there is if you defund the police, all you're going to do is create an opportunity for something else to take its place that won't be recognized, but we'll be talking about it 25 years from now. Racism ain't going nowhere. There will always be people or ideas trying to dehumanize people of color in this country. And we don't need to keep putting it out there in public. We need to talk to our families, increase our wealth. I am more and more, as I'm growing older, adopting some of the ideologies of Marcus Garvey. I'm just wondering why we're even still here. But that's something for another time. As far as defunding the police go, ultimately, if the reformers that have reformed everything else are continuing to do the reforming, I don't care what they talk about. I'm not buying it.
Let's go to Woody. Because I could see the wheels turning.
Huh?
I could see the wheels turning.
No, I mean, listen, I just think it's real interesting to me that when we say defund Planned Parenthood, everyone understands that it doesn't mean to get rid of it, that the institution of Planned Parenthood is still there, but we're still talking about that defunding the police means getting rid of the police, and it doesn't mean that at all. Now, I agree with Lewis that school reform hasn't gotten us anywhere, but I also believe that that's because we all haven't had a seat at the table. And so and also to Markel's, or not even Markel's, but Melody's point, it's not about the individuals, it's about the institution, right? Like, the reason, I don't know of any other institution that when you come onto it, someone asks you if you're your race or their job. So when you become a police officer, you're asked, are you black? Or if you're a black police officer, are you black or if you're blue? It's because they want you to buy into the idea of the institution. And so we have to change the institution. You're right, from the top so that it trickles down. I'm not saying I have an answer. I'm just saying that's what needs to be. And part of that is some of those bills that are part of the reform is looking into police backgrounds, making sure that if they commit a crime in the Poconos, that they can't get hired in Atlanta. You know what I mean? Like creating a database for that. I just also think, I don't know if you guys know this, and I'm still doing more research on this, that one of the police officers that killed George Floyd had a criminal record. How did he become a police officer if he had a criminal record? You know what I mean? And so I think that like those are some
That's
of the
what I'm
things.
saying.
Right. No, I'm agreeing with you, Kels. um, that I do agree that we need to look into them, and but we need to look at the institution of policing itself and not just the individual cities, and I think the thing is that Melody brought up a good point about what happens in Iraq. There is a documentary called Crime and Punishment. It's on Netflix and Hulu, I believe, and it's about these police officers in New York who stood up and said and talked about how they are forced to over police Black communities, right? And that they constantly, because they wanted to reach a quota. And what happens is that they keep on arresting these kids, a lot of time Black and brown kids. Cases get dismissed. But what happens if there's a kid that you keep on arresting, he keeps on going in front of a judge. The judge is like, wait, they've arrested you 5 times, then there must be something wrong with you. So now what am I going to do? I'm now going to put you into this system, and now your family who doesn't have money is fighting for you to get out. And so in the documentary, they showed that once those officers got together and were like trying to be the whistleblowers, they were intact because the institution felt like that they were being attacked. You know what I mean? The institution was like, hold on, wait a minute, you guys are turning your back on us. And then they proceeded to retaliate against those officers. And so when we say like you're just a few bad apples, it is the institution that's bad that allows those bad apples to thrive, right? And so that's what we have to fight to change. And we can do it locally. We have to hold them accountable. And so sometimes like I'm a broken record, like, let your voices be heard, but let your voices be heard. Hold them accountable. Let them know your face. You know what I mean? Like let them know your voice. If you can't go to a council meeting, send somebody, tweet at them, call them. We have to hold them accountable.
So I want to double back on that if I got a moment here, and I'll try to keep it short as well. Using a sports analogy, I agree. The institution needs to be changed, right? There's so many different laws that we need to look over and change those type of laws. But I strongly think that attacking those people that we know of that's inside these institutions first, maybe attacking their pockets, firing them if they're known KKK without pension, getting them out of there, that would make other people start to think more than to act on personal agendas. If you're KKK and you're in the police office, I think that's a personal agenda. I think you knew what you wanted. You signed up to be a police officer so you can use the shield, as they say, to take care of your personal agenda. Here's why I'm saying I'm going to use a basketball analogy to fix things. The NBA was doing its thing, right? David Stern was commissioner. Michael Jordan came, basketball took off, went international, and things of that sort. The Detroit Pistons and the Indiana Pacers got into a fight with the crowd. The NBA took a big hit. It was like, oh, these monkeys playing in this NBA league can't be controlled by the coaches and things like that. And most coaches in the NBA are white. And the media were saying things like can't be controlled by the coaches. And I've been coaching basketball for a long time, and it's never been my job to control anybody. But again, I'm not going to sit here and beat on what the media uses when they talk about whites and when they talk about blacks. But the reason why I bring this up is because yes, the system was broke, but there's certain people that need to be removed as soon as you find out something. the Clippers owner stated something when there was a racial thing going on in the media, and he quickly lost his team. Okay, so he lost his team. Players weren't going to play for him anymore. He's banned from the NBA. He can't never be affiliated or come to the NBA for anything. Like that happened within weeks of his statement coming out regarding what he said about racism and stuff like that. What do you say?
That's because it hit the NBA pocket.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So if you can do things that hit the police people pocket, and I know defunding doesn't mean just take their money away, but if you can hit those certain groups at their pockets and you take them out of there, again, removing. There was a something that came out on Instagram. I just saw real quick. This is my last statement of an African American female who there was an altercation going on. And she jumped on the police officer because the police officer had the guy in a chokehold. So she jumped on him to stop him from putting the guy in a chokehold because she felt like that didn't need to be done. And she thought that the police officer might kill that guy. She's an African-American police officer. This happened in 2006 or 2016, one of the two. 2006, I believe.
2016.
2016, I believe.
Yeah.
Within the next couple of months, she was fired
and lost her pension.
No pension.
Yeah.
That quickly. So again, when I see certain things, it just continues to play in my mind that it's not just about being black, white, or blue, but when you have white supremacy in certain positions and they're not removed, they're always going to take care of their own. Firing somebody with pay is giving someone a paid vacation. Taking them off of this force because they just got into a situation over here and moving them over to this force or giving them desk duty or whatever the case may be isn't really so. They need to be removed. They need to lose their pension. They need to no longer be in any career that you can be long. You can't be a security guard. You can't be anything that you have power or authority. You need to work at a factory. You need to go sit and do a desk job where you lick stamps or something of that sort, and you got no business being around other people.
Oh man, I like it.
What's wrong with licking stamps, man?
And if you are licking stamps and you're working at a factory, I apologize. I'm not saying anything wrong with
that.
Listen.
We're gonna go to the girls for a minute, but I wanted to say something. Market, you mentioned earlier hitting them in the pocket. I think both you and Woody mentioned that. And I have to let you know that there's something called qualified immunity, where any official people work for the government. Okay, I'm talking about, this is a law that's in place. And basically what the law, what that particular does, it protects those who work for the government. And the police officers falls under that category. So if they were to do anything and they get persecuted, and you know who has to pay that money? We do, the taxpayers. So unless we find a way to change that system, and I agree with you. If I know by doing a certain thing it's going to hit my pocket, maybe I may think twice before I do it. But we have to find a way to hold them. I'm going to go back to what Woody was saying, to hold them accountable. If one of the ways is the only color that is going to make them respond is that color called green, the money color, then maybe we need to hit them that way as well so that we can get a response from them. Let's go to Melody and Wendy.
I think that something important to know is that racism, I think, is a symptom of classism and capitalism. When you have for-profit prisons, reforming the police is not going to be enough because they have those quotas. Prisons are making money, so it's in America's best interest to keep those prisons filled, to keep the economy well nourished, and that is to the detriment of Black people. We're capital.
Great point. Great point. Great point.
Those girls smart.
Great
Those girls
point.
smart. They're smart.
I feel like the only way to really fix this is to put the money elsewhere so we can continue to make money. They're not going to reform the police if it's a multi-billion-dollar industry and we're benefiting from it. Sure, we're the ones that's suffering, but they're not. They don't care. They're getting paid regardless. So unless we find solutions that have them and us continue to make money, but also keep us safe, it's going to take a lot more, I think, than reforming. And I don't think any of this is going to be easy. I don't think any of us can really do it right now. We have to get people in power that understand how to build these systems.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
This country has existed for roughly 225 years. Slavery is gone. Jim Crow is gone. But in my opinion, the plight of the African American in the U.S. has changed very little. Why are we still trying to talk about changing something in America? 12% of the population, 30% if you include Hispanic descendants or Latinos of color. And I'm not proposing a fix. I'm just saying, what other circumstance would a disenfranchised individual after 225 years keep banging their head against the same, how do we fix this?
Well, there is such a thing called structural racism. That is, quite frankly, you don't even have to be aware of it. You don't even have to believe in it to be part of it. Structural racism works. It is almost invisible. Okay. And so there's a lot of our friends, white friends, that will call themselves, they will say, well, I'm not racist, I'm post-race, right? But somehow they still participate in this structural racism because they are still part of it.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at, for example, in the 60s, a survey was done during that era when we were talking about during the civil rights movements, right? The survey reported, this is fascinating stuff. 60% of white people think that we have reached racial equality.
Yeah.
They believe that racism ended with the civil rights movements. Just to show you how history has a way of repeating itself, okay? 20% say soon. 16% of blacks believe that equality is here right now. That was back in the 60s.
What percentage of votes?
16.
Oh, okay.
Because equality is here right now. So there is this illusion of I don't know. I don't even know how to put it in words. It's this structural racism is so powerful that even though we are trying, and as you can see, the world has evolved, okay, to some level. As you see all the marching and all these people protesting and so forth, you can see that there's something going on in the air, right? But I can't help it but to go back to what was going on during the time of Martin Luther King. And then see, people were rallying around him. People were shouting with him. They were marching with him. But that was back in the 60s. And this is 2020. We are still dealing with it as if this was just yesterday.
That's because it hasn't really gone away. It hasn't really gone away. It's been hidden more so than it's just not in your face. And like Louis said, slavery was done. I honestly don't believe slavery is over. That's what the whole private prisons and stuff like that is happening. When we talk about schools nowadays, there are still certain history topics like Tulsa, things that happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that's never being discussed in schools. And these kids are still growing up. You could take the map as a prime example. And I saw this video again because people are replaying old videos and things like that. The map is not even the correct depiction as far as size of what the continents actually look like.
Yes.
And they have small little notations at the bottom. And on the map, it shows America being so big and Africa being so small. and Iceland or Greenland, I believe, is like so large when
Greenland.
Africa's bigger than them. But they don't want you to know that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want to just bring up a point, Mondi, to follow up on what you were saying. It wasn't just in the 60s. Like, people thought the election of Barack Obama,
Barack Obama. Yes.
that was the end of discrimination and racism. You still have people today say, well, how can we be racist if we voted for Barack Obama? And it's like, okay, you have a black friend. Like, I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like, it's even, and then and that's where we, you know, we go back to you guys. Yeah, full disclosure, I've worked in media for about 16 years now, so I understand it. I consume it. I consume media a lot. I make sure that I consume that I curate media that I do consume, right? Like, and you can also do that, but you know, the media did this whole thing with Barack, like post-racial America and post this and post that. And, you know, they fed us this thing and people started to buy into it. And now we're sitting back and we're still having this conversation. Mm-hmm. So I get the frustration. But I also, you know, and this is like where maybe the optimist and the Pollyanna in me is coming out. This movement, and I wasn't around for the 60s, right? But this movement, I was around for Trayvon. I was around for Rodney King. I was around for other movements. This one feels a little different. Like, I just saw what the governor of New York signed into law yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. So these other steps that people are taking because they realize that it's bubbling. You know, it's 14 days of protest, maybe 15 days now. And if you look at polls today are saying that most Americans, 84% of Americans said that what happened to George Floyd is wrong. That they agree with the protest, right? It wasn't that high for Ferguson. It wasn't that high for Craig. It wasn't that high. So what I'm saying is that, like, the incremental changes are happening, but we still have to do our part. We still have to fight and demand accountability, make sure we're aware of everything that's happening, and also letting our voices be heard. There are actionable things. You know, you guys know those are my favorite words: actionable items, actionable steps. What are the next steps? There are things that we can do within our community to make sure that our voices are heard.
Wendy?
Yeah, I think one thing we really need to try not to let go is hope. It can feel really paralyzing seeing constantly Black people are being killed for no reason because they're perceived as a threat. We feel as if sometimes nothing has changed, but I feel like we sometimes discredit how it was still back then. Because we are very blessed to be living during this time. We can't forget that. Of course, things can be so much better, but I still think even though change is hard, it's inevitable. I think we have to still push for change, and we can't let the people that want to keep us down do it. They can't break our spirit. We have to keep trying no matter what. Even if you're trying and you're just like, listen, I don't want to stay in America anymore, but I'm a protest from Cuba. Do that. I feel like we still have to do our best, because if not, then there's really no point of going on anyway. Like, we have to keep going, because that's exactly what they don't want us to do, is to keep trying.
Jimmy just sent a text, and I'm gonna read it to you guys. He says, "As long as I got high-speed internet, let's buy uninhabited land and start over."
I'm going.
Yeah. So here's the question. Okay.
Okay.
The question I want to ask us to think about is: we know that there's structural racism, but we also that as Black people we don't own anything, and we always hear money talks, right? Money is power. What can we do as a community to begin to bring wealth into our community so we can begin to empower one another, educate one another, bring wealth back into the community? Is that something that's even possible? There's a lot of talks out there, a lot of talks about those kind of things. What are your thoughts? What do you guys think? Let's start with you.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I think part of it is staying in your community.
Staying in the community.
Yeah, I think that a lot of us have kind of an escapist mentality. When you grow up in the ghetto, your only thought is to get out because you don't want to raise your children in that kind of environment. I don't think that many people realize that they can be the good change in that environment if they were to stay and to provide more resources to the next generation. I think that's something that's very overlooked.
Okay. Well said. Louis?
The answer to that question is very, very complicated, and I'll do my best to keep this under 60 seconds. Markel, you can start the timer now. The simple answer is resources, and by resources I mean money.
Yes.
We need to first save what our energy produces. I listened to a previous show where it was discussed about, how certain brands are a part of the Black community, and any justification for doing something other than preserving. I try to convert a lot of the philosophies into farming because before capitalism took hold as a corporation, no one was an employee in this country. Everyone's job was to grow its own food and textiles and survive based on what it could produce from the land. And the access of what could be grown was bartered to get the things that they couldn't grow from the land. So it was necessary in mastering growing corn or growing potatoes to grow more than what was needed so I could use the access to fill gaps. By and large, the African community gives the access away, literally gives it away to the corporations that turn around and fund the political aspirations of people who want to keep us where in our status.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a significant problem, not with the discussion, but with the struggle to convert minds to the obviousness of the situation. We had this conversation for 90 minutes a day, and the average American sees 15 to 12,000 marketing impressions telling you to spend money. So it is so unbelievably important to develop a mindset that is first about self-preservation, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about self-preservation. And if you can't preserve yourself, the only way to do that is to grow and access and then save it and put it to work.
I agree.
Everything else is answered from there.
Okay, first of all, Louis, you're gonna have to teach a course on how exactly you just did that, because I understood everything you said. It sounded like you got your whole point across, and there's still time on the clock. So I'm gonna hit you up afterwards so we can kind of figure this out. How you did that. All right.
Ed, a point?
Oh, you want me to go? Okay. Yeah. Follow up after Louis. Let's compare. Okay. I mean that Louis hit it he hit it around the head. I think that's the most important thing. I think it's the end all be all. We can do all these things, but if we don't start with the there's a terminology, a phrase that goes, it's called unlearn and relearn. We have to first unlearn what we've kind of just been taught out of our circumstances, and then we have to relearn how to build that type of environment, that community, that we're looking for, first in in our small sections as families, and then as communities, neighborhoods, and grow larger and larger. I think that's the spot on main point of it all, because without that, we have no real threat. We have all the marching and this and third, but we don't have any real threat. We can't play the game the way that this game is being played because we don't have. Well, I mean, we're not playing by the same rules.
Yes, yes,
Listen,
yes,
I mean, the stuff that we're doing right now is very important, and it has to be done in order so that the light is shined. We put a spotlight on. Look at all this bullshit that we literally have to go through just being black. But that's not how we solve the problem. How we solve the problem is by playing the rules of the game. We all know this saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. Now, with that being said, there is some white people that I do hate. I'm going to make sure we're clear. And I do hate racism. And listen, there's some black people that fall into that same line with that negative thinking. But just like in the Bible, not everybody gets to go to the promised land, boo-boo. So I'm okay with if we all can't go, but the ones that are willing to play this game on all levels, that's exactly what we have to do. Like I said, and Rudy, I'll let you go. Like I said before, if the next time we get a black person of importance and we just find out about it at the ninth inning, we failed.
Yeah.
We failed. Like we got a black president. His name is Obama. Let's go vote for Obama. You don't know nothing about him besides he's black. You never heard of him. This man has been in this game for years. So that not only that means you don't know anything about him, that also means you weren't supporting him. So who was putting the dollars up? Because whoever was putting the dollars to get him in that position is who's actually going to get those favors. And if it wasn't our skin color, then why are we so upset when we're like, man, Obama didn't really do nothing for the black people? And then you ain't pay for it. Like, that's not the game. You ain't pay for it. Go ahead, Rue. That was my 60 seconds. Boom, I'm getting better, baby. Let's go.
Okay, so I'm going to be 60
I got
seconds.
something to say after Rudy. Go ahead.
First of all, we, the media, and everyone made Obama out to be way more of a
Rudy?
leftist and a savior than he really was. He's always been a centrist. If you look back to even when he was at the Harvard Law Review, he's always been a centrist. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think it is important. I've said this all the time that we have to make sure that we are looking up the candidates who are locally in our area and hold them accountable. And just because they have a D or an I or an R next to their name is not the reason why we should vote for them. Make sure that we are doing research and making sure that our ideologies align with their ideologies, even if it's not 100%, but if it's like 80 or 90 or 70, you're in a good place. Also, you're right, look into giving them money. Look into groups like ELECT. If ELECT is telling you that candidate is good, if you want prison reform and police reform, stay away from that candidate. I suggest you guys look up who ELECT is. And one of
as you said, ELECT?
Yeah, it's ALEC. Yeah, ELECT. It's gotten so bad with ELECT that they will have a congressman in Oklahoma and write a bill. They use that same exact bill and put it in Pennsylvania, and they've forgotten to change the name of the congressperson that submitted that bill. So look into those lobbying groups and see who they are pushing for. Same thing with
Koch brothers.
Listen, I believe that we should have gun ownership, but I don't believe in the NRA because they are not here for people of color. So I'm just saying, look into those organizations and look who they support. The one thing that I wanted to mention is how we can change it is we can support locally. We can support local Black businesses. I look at what happens, for instance, in Miami and how Cubans have been able to thrive. It's because they keep that dollar in that community. You know, they say that the Black dollar stays in the community less than six hours, but I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Revolutions, yeah. 6 revolutions.
6 revolutions, exactly. But if you look at it in other communities, it is, I guess, like it could be weeks and over or a month, right? We have to figure out how we are not only holding, if you want to say corporations accountable, though I believe that they're all PR statements, how we are holding ourselves accountable by supporting the businesses in our communities, right? Keeping that money in our communities. You know, a few years ago, there was a big push about opening bank accounts in Black banks. What happened to that? How many people have done that? What's the follow up with that? Then you have to make sure that that bank really is a Black owned bank, right? Like, and because we just saw it with the PPP that just happened. How many small Black businesses did not get those loans, right?
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
because it was institutions that quote unquote didn't know them or didn't have accounts with them. So we have to make sure that we are well versed in that. I have a friend who, I shouldn't say her name, but she worked at a bank. Another friend had a business, and she was like, "Oh, I know who that is. Here's your PPP," right? Because she understood that like that Black business was not going to get it at another institution. So we have to make sure that we're keeping the dollars in our community so that they're because that's the only way that we can really make substantial changes within our community. And we also have to think about generational wealth. I know I use this term a lot. Like, what is it that we are generational wealth and also financial literacy to younger people? What is it that we are handing over to the next generation so that they understand finance and so what generational wealth is? And that's my spiel for today.
That was awesome. I just
Real
wanted to
quick,
add. Wait. I just wanted to add on that is in dealing with Black businesses, we have to unlearn and relearn patience. Like we gotta stop judging ourselves and our Black businesses so harshly, but you okay with the fact that you brought Kylie Jenner's makeup and it's been a month and it hasn't got to your house yet, but you cool because it's Kylie Jenner, so she cool, which she don't really fuck with you in the first place, but okay, let's cool. But the girl down the street, you know, you ordered, like for example, that one girl, I don't know if you guys heard of her, she's 18 years old, she has her own product line. I mean, she sold $1 million worth of her product, which is handmade in like 8 minutes or something like that. Mind you, she can't fulfill those orders. Like it has to be an
Yeah.
education.
Yeah.
Have patience. Understand this is not a 500-man business, that Black business that has a warehouse somewhere. This is her and her family that's literally pouring each thing into each vial, mailing it off to you. Have patience with us. The system that we're trying to fight did not start off this way. Walmart, if we should do the research, you have to know your enemy.
Yeah.
Walmart did
Yes.
not start with the distribution rights that they have. They started out very small, going to house by house, doing what they did. They grew into that. We can have that, but we have to have the patience. Don't compare my business today to Walmart today. It's not going to make sense. And if we're looking to keep that money into our communities, that's what we have to do.
I want to just say my last piece here. One, this has been a great conversation and very, very informative as well. I've even learned a little bit. I've given up on America. And I'm going to say that because, one, if you go back, we were never brought here for anything other than helping other people get better.
Yes.
I'm
Say it,
more
Malcolm. Say it.
I'm more so like I'm more so on the thought process now of what is it that Africa needs that we can take, because we've done so much and we've gone so far. We come from plenty of issues and built up and overcome and all this other type of stuff. We've done so much just to make it here. What knowledge, expertise, what things can we take back and be like, peace. We came here, we helped y'all out. Y'all still not giving us equal opportunity, equal rights.
Do it by yourself. Y'all don't need us no more.
I
I'm
say,
gonna take all my education and
I
learning.
say,
I'm gonna go take it back to Africa. I'm gonna go take it back to Haiti. We're gonna put all that stuff into where we actually was supposed to
Mhm.
be at from the beginning, and watch us make Wakanda for real, for real. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, we continue to try to ask for approval and ask for equal this and opportunity, right? And I get it, because we're living in this situation right now. So we got to do what we got to do to try to get what we need for right now. But I can honestly care less if we ever have another black president. I can honestly care less what gonna happen in the next couple of years. I think my mindset now is, what is it that Africa needs? What it is that Haiti needs that I know here, a contractor, a building person who builds buildings, a black person who builds buildings. Let me fly them down to Haiti. Let's check the ground level, where we could build, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all that type of stuff. Because we really don't need to be staying here, to be honest with you. And that's my opinion. That's my opinion. You know what I'm
Period.
saying? So, period. Like that. Like, for real, for real. That's really where my mental at. And I almost guarantee you, if it really went down like that, they would bring another ship over and be like, hey, what is it that you guys want? Because we think you should come back to America, because we don't know what the hell we doing over here. We only was doing well because y'all set up everything. Y'all did the railroads, y'all bought us microwaves, y'all bought us lights, y'all bought us this, y'all did that, y'all did that. So we really need your help, because our economy is crap without y'all.
They're gonna enslave each other.
I'm out.
That's the thing. Black people are the current scapegoats. Before, it was poor white people. It's class.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Wow. Well, I want to take a moment, guys. It's been a wonderful experience to watch all of you guys and listen to the different point of views from everyone. I watched a video from Oprah, and the title of it is "Where Do We Go From Here?" And so I want to take a few seconds, not even a minute, to truly say that we have touched on a few things that are very equally important that we must remember. One of the things that I'm taking with me is that we need to make an impact with what we have. I think a lot of times we are waiting for them to give us the permission to do something. Not anymore. Use what you have. Use the gift that you have. Use the skills that you have. Use the financial ability that is right there in front of you. Okay, use it. Let's use that to build each other. Let's invest in each other. And Eddie, you made a valid point. We have to support mom and pop shop. We have to support the local stores. We have to, because they rely on us in order for them to continue to grow. We are in this, and I say this about 4 weeks ago. This is a long battle. This is not something we can do and just marching and we shall overcome someday. No, we can't keep doing that and expect changes to take place. We have to keep fighting. We have to invest. We have to support each other. And I'm going to close by bringing the church into this. As you know, I think the church has a role to play beside preaching sermon every weekend. I believe the church needs to be a place, for example, in our black communities, the church needs to be a place where one of the problems that I see that people have no outlets to talk about their social, of physical, psychological, mental abuse that they have experienced in their personal life. And they need an outlet. They need a place, a safe place where they can go and get all that out of their mind, all that out of their hearts. And on top of that, they need to find things to do. If we can begin to invest our energy into the community, people will have more jobs, people will have more opportunities, the crime rate will reduce because people are busy providing for their families. So I'm calling the church to come out to make a difference in the community where they are. Again, I said this before. If your church, if your building in the community is not making a difference in that community, then you don't need to be there. Because if Walmart wants to tear away that church and build another Walmart, will the community say no? They would rather have that church building there. So we always have to remember, wherever you are as a church, wherever you are, you have to make a difference. That's what Jesus did. He made a difference everywhere he went. Thank you so much, family. I want to encourage you, those of you who are watching, if you enjoyed this show, we want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channels. We are looking for 100 subscribers for this month. We're not even halfway there, but I know we can get there. So you tell your friends to tell your friends so that they can tell their friends, okay? We are looking for 100 subscribers on our YouTube channel this month. Before we go, I want to say thank you to our guest, Louis. It was a pleasure having you on The Remedy. And to everyone else, thank you so much for being here.
I didn't go up too bad.
All right.
You did great, bro. Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to just two people real quick. Shout out to my cousin Jessica for looking out. I love you, boo. Thanks for that text message. Safety first. And then my other shout out is to everybody that's Black. I'm rooting for everyone. So let's do it.
Amen. Shall we close our eyes? Let's pray. Father God, we just want to say thank you so much for using us and giving us the opportunity to come together and wrestle with this topic and try to understand what the root, the real issues, what are they and how we can make things better. Lord, we can't do it alone. We need you to continue to inspire us, to give us the zeal, to give us the inspiration, to give us the power, but most importantly, to give us the breath of life. For every breath that we take is a gift from you. We want to say thank you for loving us. Thank you for being our God. Thank you for marching with us every single day. We love you. We can't take our eyes off of you. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, family. I love you. And we will see each other again next week for another episode here on The Remedy. God bless you all.